What's happening, guys? We are back for episode 4 of Off the Platform. I'm Sean from Platform Ready, and I'm here today with the fantastic lifter, Bobbie Butters. Bobbie, it's great to be speaking to you again. It's been a while since we've actually spoke. Quite some time since you was originally a Platform Ready sponsored athlete as well, before obviously going across to SBD, which it was fantastic having you in the ranks at the time. How are you? How's lifting?
Well, so firstly, thank you very much for inviting me onto the podcast. It's an absolute pleasure and an honour to be here. Yeah, I am. I'm really good, thank you. Yeah, I'm in my 13th year of competitive lifting, so yeah, lifting's really good to be able to say that.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. And one thing that I like to start this with is, where did it all begin? Talk to me from literally from word go. What inspired you to get into lifting, and then how did that journey take you to where you are today?
I love this question. So I have 2 starting points, but I'm going to go with the very, very first starting point. And that is when I was a very little girl, probably age 6 in primary school, when I learned that I loved to know if I could lift something. And that was, basically, I remember I was in primary school and it was boys versus girls, and we were lifting buckets of water. And the boys had 2 buckets of water and I had one, or the girls had one, should I say. And I was like, no, excuse me, I want to know if I can lift 2 buckets of water. And so we had to lift the buckets of water and run to and from. And I just remember I like loving the fact I could lift these buckets of water at age 6, just loving it. And then I started lifting like weights and things like that, like in my bedroom, and learning how to do push-ups when I was like 6 and 7. And I just loved it. And one of the things that inspired me, I remember being a child, and my dad will be proud of this one, is Rocky Balboa. I remember watching that as a kid, loving the training montages, just being like, what? This is amazing. I want to do this. I want to lift this. I want to do one-handed push-ups. That was my first goal. And my mom heard me many, many times face plant the floor upon my journey of trying to do one-handed push-up in my bedroom. And then sort of from there, like I remember I was age 8 and I decided I wanted to be a personal trainer. I remember going into my mom and being like, Mom, I know what I want to do. I want to be a personal trainer. I want to help people achieve their goals. And that sort of followed me all the way through school. And then at 16, I went to college and I started doing my personal training qualification. And I loved it. I loved school. But when I went to college, I really found my own regarding like lifting in my sport, if you will, but then also the education side of things. I did a lot of sport at school. I'd already got weights and stuff like that in my bedroom, and so I was doing all sorts of different things at school. I played hockey for a long time, that type of thing. But then yeah, at 16 it was very much, I was in the gym. First time I properly was like, this is a gym, a real one with real weights and all that sort of thing. And you learn how to lift, you learn how to instruct how to lift and stuff like that on a personal training course. And it was an NVQ back then. I don't think they even do those anymore. And I remember we were learning how to deadlift, and I didn't know what I was doing. First time ever sort of deadlifting. I was 50 kilos at that time from what I remember. And I deadlifted 100 kilos, just sort of practicing how to do it and teaching each other, like, okay, right, what do you do? Like, how do you do it? And there's a picture of me doing it, which is really cool. And it's actually up in my parents' house. And obviously at that point, I didn't really know what that meant. And I remember one of my college lecturers said to me, like, have you ever heard of powerlifting? And I was like, no, this is a sport. You can lift things and it's a competition. I was very excited. I think like 2 months later, I entered my first competition in this like backstreet gym in the middle of Dudley, which is where I'm from, in the Midlands. And I just loved it. And that was 13 years ago. Literally in May, 13 years ago in May, that was my first powerlifting competition. And then I did powerlifting for a little while with BDFPA, so British Drug Free Powerlifting Association. And then I think a year into that, I also did some Olympic weightlifting. That's when I started my Olympic weightlifting journey. My Olympic weightlifting journey is a mixture of different things. So I love the sport. Did my master's by research looking at Olympic weightlifting. Like, I absolutely adore the sport. I watch it to this day. But unfortunately didn't quite go the way I wanted it to. So I did that for about 18 months, I think. And I really did. I really enjoyed it. I competed quite a lot of times in that time, and I was somehow managed to be English and under 23s champion in that time, which was pretty cool. So I was like, we were kind of like on the road to Rio type thing, if you will, quote unquote. And I got selected to be on the Olympic development squad, which is incredible. And I was so tunnel visioned because I was like, well, I want to go to the Olympics. Unfortunately, the ending to this journey didn't end particularly well. I ended up having something called chronic fatigue syndrome, from what I understand. And I had a lot of back pain, a lot of chronic back pain. And I was only 17, 18, coming to 19 around this time. So I remember the day I pulled out of the Olympic development squad, and it was soul destroying because I had built this identity that I was going to go to the Olympics, or at least try to. And so that was really difficult. And so I went for a year, and it was my first year of uni. So age 19 by this point, I went away to uni and I was learning about my body. I'd seen physios, osteopaths, in and outside of the NHS, that type of thing, to try and work out like what was going on with my body. And I learned a lot. As a student, which was really helpful. So I did strength and conditioning for my undergraduate degree, which was incredibly helpful. And we did a module like anatomy and physiology. We did injury prevention modules, and they were brilliant because they really got me to understand like what my body was actually doing. And then sort of like a year of rehab, if you will. So that's probably the only year out of the last 13 years I didn't compete, which was weird, very, very strange. And I came to a crossroads where I was like, do I want to go back to Olympic weightlifting throughout this rehab process, or do I want to go back to powerlifting? And I remember I was in the gym and I thought about this, and I was like, I need to write this down. So I did my pros and cons list of going back to powerlifting, going back to weightlifting. And at the top of powerlifting, I wrote, I love powerlifting. And that was the first thing I wrote. And I wrote loads of different things, pros and cons for each one. And I looked at it and I was like, well, I made my decision, haven't I? Like, I'm going to go back to powerlifting. And that was really, that was like a revelation. And yeah, so then I went to GBPF. So under the International Powerlifting Federation, Great Britain, sector, if you will. And yeah, I sort of never really looked back from then. So I think I started my 2015 perhaps with the IPF and GBPF. And then yeah, my sort of journey sort of continued from there, really. I was still dealing with a lot of back pain probably until about 5 years ago, and I just sort of managed it with a variety of different things. This is an entire podcast in of itself, the rehabilitation process that I went through. It's very emotional at times, but I learned a lot about my body, and I wouldn't change what I went through at all, because I did learn a lot about myself, about my body, about how I work, etc. And then yeah, my first ever international competition actually ended up being as a senior. So I got selected 3 times as a junior powerlifter. And unfortunately, I couldn't go to any of them due to financial difficulties. Being a student, etc., it's quite difficult to be swanning off to various different locations when you're trying to make ends meet and put food on the table as a student. So yeah, when 2018, I did my first European Championships in Lithuania, and then pretty much every year since then, I'm really fortunate to say I've represented Team GB on the powerlifting team, European Championships, and I think this year will be my 5th or 6th Worlds or something like that, which is just mind-blowing. I absolutely love competing for my country and traveling the world, competing in the sport that I just adore. So yeah, that's now up to date, I guess, trying to be a whistle-stop tour without talking too much. But yeah, in 13 days today, I'm competing at my next World Championships, which is exciting.
Before we go on to the Worlds, do you look back now and the chronic fatigue element that you highlighted? Do you look back now and go, if I knew what I knew as part of my, your first year of university, do you think it could have been different?
I think so. I think I'd have slept more, which is the story of my life. So, I think I would have done it a little bit differently. I think I learned a lot though as well. And sometimes, without sounding too cliche, you do build strength and resilience from the struggles that you go through. And I truly, truly do believe that. The only thing that I would tell my younger self is just sleep a bit more and have a bit more belief in yourself. So yeah, that's my only thing really.
It's hard though, isn't it? University life, and obviously trying to, like you say, put food on the table. If depending on what your funding situations and things like that are like, university's tough, and I think a lot of people listening, if they're at university, will understand that. I think those that haven't been to university and probably haven't ate beans on toast and rice-based meals and things, just trying to scrape by, won't understand it. But it takes a lot out of you, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a big deal as well. And I see my students go through it. You're 19, you've moved away from home, you're in a new city if you live in halls, and there's a lot more sort of hidden things that you don't see on the surface that you're going through, which you don't realise at the time until you've been through it. Been like, oh, bloody hell, I literally up and moved my life to a different part of the country.
Often alone as well.
Often alone, yes, of course. Often alone. Often quite young as well. So yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we see it. The students that I coach at university with American football, exactly the same situation, and it's lovely to be part of their journey and being able to provide them with that support at university while they're away from home and things. So yeah, you learn a lot from it. You learn a hell of a lot from the university side of things. Tells you a lot about yourself, I think, more than anything.
Absolutely, yeah, I quite agree. I really do.
Yeah. So one thing I've noticed about your training, and probably others have noticed about your training, it's very, very methodical. It's very, very purposeful. Talk to me about it, Bobbie, because I think some people, if they followed you for a while, they'll get exactly what I mean.
Okay. So when you say methodical, which aspect are you referring to in particular? The actual program itself, or the way I approach it?
The programming itself, and I think more recently you've put velocity-based training in it as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so talk to me about it, because I think it's different to a lot of other people's training. So I think it'd be good to get a bit of an insight.
Okay, yeah, cool. So I think a lot of the methodical side of things comes from my rehab background, I think, as an athlete. So there was a lot of things, like for such a long time, I could barely deadlift once a week. And once every 10 days, like that's how it would be for such a long time. And so because I think I've had to tailor so many different exercises, to work on various parts of my body. At one point I had 3 spinal defects, flat feet, and like various different things. And so I've approached it from a very methodical perspective to manage pain and to develop my technique as good as I could, because I was dealing with pain for such a long time. If my spine even remotely moved out of position on deadlift, I'd be like, oh my God, it's going to spasm or whatever. I've learned that I'm not made of a pane of glass. And I allow myself to actually come out of that position a bit more now. But I think that potentially is where that comes from. I think as well, when you study strength and conditioning, you know, you've been in the field. Like I've been writing programs when I actually think about it for like 20 years. And so like, I think I do have this like methodical way of doing things that make sense. My ex-coach was also very logical and methodical. So I think I picked a lot of that up from him as well. He had a very logical way of thinking. And then more recently, I'm now training with Henry Tosh, and that's the start of last year. I want to say, I'm losing track of years. And that's when we started introducing velocity-based training. And as a lecturer, because I teach velocity-based training, it always interested me. What would this be to use as an athlete? And next thing you know, Henry's like giving me his old Tendo unit, and I'm like, this is exciting. Like, this is more data. What are we going to do with it? So that's kind of my approach. And I like the way that it's used because it's not the sole metric. It's a mixture of percentage-based training. It's a mixture of reps in reserve. It's a mixture of AMRAPs and velocity-based training, but it gives us something to go with. And I just think it's really cool. And like, I've been like looking at my weights the last few weeks, been like, oh, that's a bit quicker than last time, isn't it? And it just gives a little bit of an extra metric, but then at the same time, knowing that sometimes it's going to be slower and being objective about that as well. So yeah, I hope I've answered your question.
You have. Can you get lost in data?
100%, and that's why I think the reps in reserve and like that subjective nature is also important. And yeah, absolutely. I do. Both of them is important, and that's the way we program. I say we. Henry programs, because you can absolutely get lost in data. And I'm actually a very holistic coach and a holistic athlete. Even though on the surface it looks very methodical, very data driven. So like if I feel a certain way about a training session or anything like that, like sometimes Henry will just be like, you know, I'm going to put this in so you can like, what's the word? I'm trying to think of the phrase now. Scratch that itch, you know, to sort of like just go and do an AMRAP or go and add some more weight on or something like that. So yeah, it's sort of a mixed approach, and I'm a very much a holistic style lifter and coach.
I like that a lot. I think, like I say, from seeing I think so many people are RPE based. I think we as a sport, we went from percentage based into RPE, and then like you say, now there is a lot more holistic approaches to it.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to choose one strategy to get you or your clients, which way would you go, knowing that you've spanned across many? Which would you choose if you had to choose one?
That's really challenging. So in terms of percentage based, RPE based, or velocity, is this the ones we're going for? Or
yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, I reckon my brain, if I had to pick one, I think my brain would go more RPE based. At a push, I think.
Gives some scientific approach. Gives some feel. It's the holistic nature, isn't it? Rather than is too structured or too data driven.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's really cool is a lot of my blocks start with pure RPE, and I think, and even when it's on my program, even when it is velocity based, there's a reps in reserve note of what is it like. Yeah. Okay, how did it feel? That was a speed, but how did it actually feel? I think both. So it's so important to have both, but I think if I had to just pick the one, yeah, the RPE, though it doesn't work for everybody, and even the research like sort of demonstrates that RPE is much harder to predict at the lower scale than it is the upper scale. You kind of know if
Yeah.
you've only got one more left in the tank, or maybe two. When it gets down to the RPE, sort of, it's like 4, 5, 6. It's much more varied. But yeah, that's what I'd pick, I'd say.
It's good to know. It's good to know.
Yeah.
Like I say, it intrigues me. You know, as a coach, I like to hear other people's thoughts and views, and it is an interesting topic. It really is. So let's go all the way back. Day one of deadlifting, you did a 2 times bodyweight deadlift.
Oh, bloody hell, I didn't realise that. Yeah.
So day one of Bobbie deadlifting, a 2 times bodyweight deadlift. That, it just, yeah, you don't see many people walk into a gym and just 2 times bodyweight deadlift and that's it, off they go. If you had to pick between squat, bench, and deadlift,
No, what are you doing to me?
which one would it be?
It's so difficult to choose. It really is. I get this question a lot. I had a student ask me this today. Oh gosh, it's so challenging. I think sugar. You really put me on the spot here. I think my favourite one to pick in this situation, because I've had to work so much on it, I'd have to pick my squat, I think. I've got a very special relationship with my squat, I think, because of the challenges I've actually had with it. I've had a fair share of challenges with my deadlift, absolutely. And it is, I love all three of them so much, and I attack every single one with that same intent in training and on the platform, or on and off the platform, if you will. But yeah, I think I'd pick my squat.
I'd have gone squat. If I'd have gone squat. I would have said squat. If you'd asked me first, I'd have said,
yeah,
you'll be going squat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I find really... Sorry, go on.
No, you go.
What I find really ironic, and I do a lecture every year on the squat with my first years, is I can't squat without my heels on properly. Oh wait, my bodyweight squat, shocking, because of the way my ankles are, because of the way that I was born. And if I was to squat to depth like normally, my knees would be in, and I'd be getting front shin pains and things like that. So it'd be challenging. Put a bit of weight on, it improves massively. It's so much more improved than like 10 years ago, if you will. But I have a very special relationship with my squat. I remember my first international, I dive bombed my first squat, towards the centre ref, because I do my ballerina squats, I call them, and that's when I come onto my toes and my heels leave the ground, because I just don't have that available range of motion in my ankles, despite so much ankle rehab. So yeah, that's the ironic part with my squat.
It's interesting. I can't. My ankle. I've got arthritis in my ankle, and I've got no ankle mobility whatsoever.
Sorry to do that.
It's awful. It's awful. So trying to squat it's ridiculous. So yeah, I like I say, I think I did watch the Worlds where you. Yes, I think I did. Watch that one.
Yeah, my first ever one.
Yeah. Worlds, 13 days.
13 days. Yeah, that's the one. 17th June.
How's prep? You said you're working with a new coach from early last year?
Early last year. Yeah, early last year. January of last year. Yeah, that's the one.
So what's changed into this prep? What's different from this prep to last prep? How's it all gone?
Okay, you've opened a can of worms now. So the last sort of 12 months has been an interesting one, and I've dealt with things I never expected I'd be dealing with. In terms of my physical health, if you will, without sounding quite too dramatic there. What's different to this particular prep compared to, say, this time last year is I've eaten a lot more, and I'm sleeping a lot more. I'm resting a lot more. It's surprising what those three things can do to a human being. So yeah, that's a big one for me. And yeah, like I think that's been some really key fundamental blocks. The last sort of few competitions that I've done, I've called them sort of recovery comps. So I did Girl Power back in October, and then I did the Arnold, and that was like okay, right, let's see what's there. We'll do a cut properly, and just make sure everything's all good. I didn't do a cut for the Girl Power, just sort of did a practice run of a water cut, never done one before. And then the Arnold was like, okay, I feel like I'm back a bit here, and let's keep building this momentum, and that's what I felt like I've done during this prep.
Nice. And not giving too much away, where do you think you're looking in terms of worlds? How do you think it's going to stack up?
It's a good question. So, what for me, if I get PBs on each lift, I'll be buzzing. Not gonna lie, I really, really will be happy. It's been a long time. I did 190 for the first time on my deadlift at the Arnold, and it was just exhilarating because I've been waiting for so long, like due to various reasons, to get a PB. So getting a PB and close to that 500 kilo total would be obscene. I'll be so happy, and then to make that podium, to get on that podium with the competition that I've got around me, an absolute honour. It would be fantastic. I'll be gunning for as high as I can go.
It's fantastic. It is fantastic. Like I say, I was looking through open powerlifting and looking at records and bits and pieces, and it's quite remarkable. So yeah, I think I won't just be the only one saying it, but we'll be watching. We'll be certainly wanting to see you sort of succeed and get those PBs. It'd be fantastic.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Life outside of powerlifting.
Right. Life outside of powerlifting. Where do I begin? Do you want me to begin anywhere in particular, just see where my head goes?
See where your head goes.
Okay.
Take powerlifting, take training out of the equation. Who is Bobbie?
Who is Bobbie? Okay, I like this question. Who's Bobbie? Okay, so I learned when I first started working with my coach, actually with Henry, that I'm a workaholic. I've definitely learned that, and that's been part of my detriment as to why resting and sleeping has not been a big pillar in my powerlifting journey. So, in a nutshell, I'm a full-time lecturer at the University of Central Lancashire, and I absolutely adore my job. So I teach on sport and exercise science and nutrition and exercise science, and I'm really fortunate I get to also teach on strength and conditioning. And I really do. I absolutely love my job. I love that I'm a module leader. I get to take students through a similar journey that I've been through, and I get to hopefully impart some knowledge to the upcoming generations of coaches and personal trainers and sports scientists. So that's my sort of day-to-day full-time job, if you will. I do run a strength and conditioning coaching business. It's very small these days now. It's just literally to keep my toe dipped in. Programming wise, I've had the same athletes for like 8 years. I absolutely love them. And it's just nice to have that sort of bit of coaching part of my weekly routine, if you will. A maximum sort of 4 hours a week I spend coaching now. This time last year, it was still a part-time job, which I learned that I have to take that down. And then 18 months ago, I decided to embark upon my PhD journey, and I started that journey. So as a lecturer, very fortunately, you get research hours. It equates to 1 day a week, which is in my opinion is simply not enough, to be honest. But this time of year I get to be a bit more of a PhD student. My topic that I picked, weirdly, before it became such a big thing in the media, my thesis title is the the effects of the menstrual cycle phases on muscular strength. And yeah, that I just adore it. I call it my passion project, and that I wish I could do every day. And it's frustrating when I can't do it every day. But yeah, that's my that's sort of my sort of work side of things. But then if I take away the PhD hat, I take away the lecturer's hat, I take away the coach's hat and the athlete hat, if you will. Bobbie, just like, I really do enjoy the life I live. And I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I've got around me. I'm very fortunate that I am surrounded by people that are extremely supportive. And one of the big things that I love to do is I love to spend time with my partner. I love to spend time with his kids. And yeah, I really value the relationships that I have around me. Definitely. I think all my friends will agree I'm a little bit crazy, if you will. I believe I'm a positive sort of person. So yeah, I do. I value the people around me. And I just like to, have fun with those relationships, if you will.
It's important, isn't it? When all said and done, the relationships are so important.
So important. And it's the little things, like I've been with my partner now for 2 years, and it's the little things. Like, I love that every morning what I'll do is I'll wake up. My boyfriend's a farmer, and it'll be 5 o'clock and he's already been working probably for 2 hours on a regular basis, and I'll ring him and I will walk over to go and weigh myself, and I'll ring him and I'll be like, morning, how are you doing? Ready for coffee and breakfast? And I'll go and make breakfast, and then we'll sit for half an hour and we'll have breakfast together. I normally do a cooked breakfast, like a healthy version if you have a cooked breakfast. And we sit and we chat over our coffee, and I'm just like, this is just a good way to start the day. And I love that he values that same thing. And we're both workaholics. He's a farmer, so like he's always working.
It's life.
It's life. Farming is life. It's potatoes is life. So,
if you don't embrace it as a way of life, I don't think you'd do it, would you?
Absolutely. Like, I've got like a desk in his building because, like, really fortunately I get to work from home every now and again as well. Like, I try and do it once a week, and so I have a desk in his spud building so that we can just work side by side sometimes. And yeah, it's just those little things like that I really, really cherish. Definitely. And yeah, I try and be the supportive farmer's wife, if you will.
I'm sure he appreciates it.
I know that he does.
I've known a couple of farmers.
They are just
over the years it blows my mind. Blows my mind.
Unreal.
Going back to your thesis, I mentioned to you, you are the first female athlete who's been on the podcast. Is there any key messaging that you would put out there for female lifters?
Oh gosh, me. This question gets harder and harder to ask, I must say. There's so many myths out there, if you will. I don't know if myths is the correct term. And I get why. I get why the media tries to make it simple. It makes sense. It's, it compartmentalizes things and it makes it simple that, certain times of the month means this and other times of the month means this. I wish it was that simple as a researcher. It would make my thesis a lot easier to write. However, there's so many nuances and different ways, and every single female will experience something different, and every single cycle with that female could be slightly different. So the advice that I would give at first is track what you're doing. If you happen to notice certain symptoms that happen every single month, write it down how can you manage those symptoms? It might be that it's all really positive. And, a period doesn't have to be a negative thing. It happens to most females have a cycle. Even if you're on contraception, there could be some form of, period, whether it is a withdrawal bleed or whatever. There's ways of managing it. The way to manage it could be very different. If you're experiencing something that's completely irregular, out of the ordinary, it's particularly really painful and it is debilitating, go and seek advice from your GP. That's the advice I would give right now. And it's okay if you do feel like, certain times of the month it is a little bit harder, or it gets really hard, or there's certain times of the month where like, I'm absolutely, buzzing, amazing. Make notes of that, etc. One thing that I'm going to suggest is there's no real evidence to suggest that you should periodize your training around your period. So I'd recommend not to fall into sort of that way unless there's like real evidence that for you that is going to work for you. I'm working with an athlete right now and we're trying to give it a go of, if we manipulate something at this time of the month, is that going to help your month as a whole? It might or it might not. It's something that my athlete has suggested. So I was like, you know what? Let's give it a go. You've got 6 months worth of data here and you're saying that this happens every month. You feel this way, etc. So, okay, right, let's manipulate these variables, making sure that all other variables are taken into account as well. So sleeping well, hydration, nutrition. I think that the menstrual cycle is another facet. It's another piece of information that you can use, but it's not the be-all and end-all of what phase that you're in. Over my PhD journey, my opinion could completely turn on its head, and I'm open to that. Well, I'm hoping I've been concise enough with that. Again, I could talk all day about this. So essentially, track what you're doing. If there's anything that's really out of the ordinary, seek advice from your GP.
It's interesting because I coach a predominantly male client base. It's and always, and sort of always have, and I think there are distinct differences between male and female training, and it's one of the things that I've been asked advice on, and like you say, do I need to periodise my training based around monthly cycles and things? And it's a difficult one to answer.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, the only thing that you can advise is to understand yourself and understand your body.
Yeah.
And that's the only advice I've been able to sort of say in the past with that side of things. And at times, if someone is struggling, I will say to people, I'm not the right person to coach you. If that's where your thoughts are, I think you need to speak to someone who has got that sort of level of coaching experience with, sort of female body experience. That's my view, and I think I find it particularly interesting because it's an area that, like I say, I struggle to sort of understand to be able to coach. So it is quite, it's insightful. So, in terms of your PhD journey, how far into that are you?
It's a really great question. I'll come back to that. I just want to applaud you for your approach there. I think it's a very honourable approach that you're recognising, that things could be different, and fair play to you saying to somebody, because I know it's hard as a coach to say I could maybe not be the right person for you. Whether that's right or wrong, that's for you and the athlete that you're talking to, absolutely. But you're having those conversations and people are coming to you about those conversations, which is amazing and says a lot about you, that someone is open to have those conversations. So it's very honourable to hear that.
Thank you.
No worries. So I am very early in my PhD process. I am 18 months or so into my PhD. So I'm part-time as well, thank God.
Okay.
So 18 months in, so what I've done thus far is I've developed my first phase of my PhD, and I'm hoping I get to release what I am doing, if you will, and start really collecting some data over the next couple of months. And the first year is very much about getting something called a research program approval. So you basically state what you want to do, why you want to do it, how you're going to do it, etc., etc. What's your timeline of the next 6 to 7 years, etc. I got that approved March last year, and then over the last year I've been developing some questionnaires without giving too much away, which I'm hoping to be able to disseminate soon. That process has taken a lot longer than I originally wanted it to, and I've learned to accept that that's just the way it goes.
It just moves slowly.
Yeah, but it moves. That's the thing. And I've just done something called an annual progressive document, where basically me and my supervisory team, I've got a fantastic supervisory team. You know, we'll talk about what I've achieved over the course of the year, and then what's to come sort of next. And that was a really highlighting process. Actually, I've done a lot more than I think I give myself credit for. And with a PhD, if anyone's listening, you're about to embark upon the PhD, or maybe you're already doing it, sometimes it's not just about the tangible things that you've got on paper that is the PhD journey. It's everything else. I love that my director of studies is amazing. I've known him for 10 years. He was my course leader as an undergrad. And he'll go, so much of the PhD is thinking. And the thesis is essentially just all of your thoughts put down. And it's like, I like this. Because sometimes you can sit and you can read something and just sit and think about it and get into a rabbit hole about what you're doing. But yeah, so I'm at the phase where, fingers crossed, next few months, I'll be able to disseminate my questionnaires.
Are you going to leverage followings, etc., as part of the research?
Absolutely. Yes. I will be asking as many human beings as I physically can, both coaches and athletes, both male and female coaches. I want to know.
There we go.
Essentially.
Tell me everything possible about you, and that's it.
Absolutely. There's a bit more structure to that, but yes, essentially, there's certain things I want to know with the aims of my questionnaires, and yeah, essentially, I want to know stuff. So yeah.
By all means, leverage what you can from us as well. We're, like I say, if we can certain, give it a share and things like that, just shout up.
Really, really appreciate that. Thank you very much. I will send across the posters.
Definitely.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Definitely do.
Good.
So, a couple of, let's call them a bit more casual questions. So we've already established if you had to choose one lift, it would be squat.
Yeah.
If you got rid of squat, bench and deadlift, what secondary lift would you choose as your favourite lift?
I love a bit of overhead press, I love overhead press. Oh yeah, love overhead press. It was the first ever lift I did as a child. The first thing I ever did was lift a barbell above my head. No, yeah.
It gets lost sometimes, doesn't it, in terms of powerlifting training? People, some are very great believers that overhead press has a place, and some are it doesn't have a place, and therefore we don't use it.
Yeah, depends what angle you're looking at, I think, for sure. But I just enjoy it. That from that perspective is what do I enjoy? I'd pick that. Yeah, I enjoy most lifting, but yeah.
What would you suggest is your biggest weakness?
Lifting wise?
Let's go lifting and then non-lifting.
Okay. Oh, that's a good question. So I think due to my sort of back issues, my back has been a potential weakness, if you will, over my lifting career. It's something I've had to work a lot on sort of build back up. My hamstrings were just not alive for such a long time. So that type of thing, yeah, my posterior chain, like coming from my back, I'd say it's definitely developed so much now. Like, I'm really proud of the work I've put in to develop it to the way, to what I've been able to do now. Fingers crossed. I hope to lift a particular number at Worlds, we shall see. So yeah, I'd say that was my biggest weakness from a lifting perspective. From an overall perspective, something that I continuously learn and I continuously try to deal with is I'm so quick to be hard on myself. I'm so quick, and the PhD is only drawing that out of me more, because I just have such a constant feeling at times where it's, I should be doing more. I should be doing more. I should be working harder. I should be doing more. I should be getting up earlier. It shouldn't matter that I need to train. I should be getting up at 5 no matter what. It's like I've got these unwritten rules that like carry me around, and if I don't hit them, then it's like, no, it's not acceptable. And definitely times at stress, high levels of stress, high levels of fatigue, if I deem that I'm not doing good enough, I really can be hard on myself. To become unhelpful. There's one way to be ambitious and push yourself, and then there's another way to be like, you're just simply not working hard enough, even though there's no hours left in the day. So yeah, that was one of my weaknesses that I try and catch myself doing. I've done it all of my life. I never feel like I work hard enough, but it's changed from not being good enough. For a very, very, very long time, it was I'm not good enough, whereas it's changed now to I'm not working hard enough.
And what would you say is your biggest strength?
Which is harder to answer now. I think my biggest strength on the back of that, I guess, is discipline. And I'm getting better at being disciplined to rest as well. So there's discipline to do, discipline not to do, and I think I'm developing both. But I think I'm very good at being disciplined to routines, to schedules, to training at 7 p.m. of an evening, because that's when I am competing at 7 p.m. and that's what I've done for so many weeks. So yeah, I think that's my sort of biggest strength, and it's needed to get sometimes lots of different things ticked off that I need to do with my sort of job and things.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I like that you're adjusting the way to train based on the way and conditions of competition as well. That strikes. That resonates.
Yeah.
I get that.
What would you prefer, early morning or late night lifting session?
I'm probably late morning.
Yeah. Everyone has that.
That would, if I could choose any, it would be late morning.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, when we was at Worlds last year and I saw that it was 7 p.m, I was like, what? So late for me, because I'm up from 5 o'clock just because that's what time I like to get up and have done for many years. So by then I'm like, well, I've been up for 14 hours. I don't want to do 7 p.m. lifting time. What? Obviously, at a competition, it's irrelevant. You don't really look at the time. You just know how many lifts you are from doing your next attempt. But yeah, I was like, I want to be adjusted to this late night. For some, it's not late. I think I spoke to Tony Cliff and he was like, that's not late, that's early still. And to me, I'm like, I'm getting ready to be tucked up in bed. So yeah, that's been an adjustment.
When you're prepping for a comp, what do you miss about the off season?
What do I miss about the off season? Oh, this is a good question. I do like the variety that you get in the off season, and you get to play around with different things. Getting good at something that that's like a brand new exercise. And I look forward to that after the competition. I do like that variety, for sure.
And flip the question on its head. When you're in off season, what do you miss about competing?
I'm literally the heavy lifting, the going for the PBs, I don't get as hyped and things like that. Obviously, like, I mean, I can if I want to get hyped for a bicep curl, but it's not quite the same. But yeah, like there's just something about, prepping and lifting something heavy that's just very special. That I love. So I definitely miss that when I'm in the off season, but know that this is necessary to be able to do that again.
Yeah. What's the most unusual or funny comment you've heard about you or your lifting?
Oh God!
Social media is a crazy place. So what? Everybody's got one.
It's just amazing. One of the posts that came out after Arnold's went a little bit cuckoo. I'm not sure if you've seen it on my social media, but there's a squat video that went out, and it's just brilliant. And some of the comments is just unreal, accusations. I'm surprised WADA isn't on my door of the amount of accusations that I've had. I'm like, mate, I get drug tested regularly. Anyway, the funniest comment though, and I'm really sorry, I'm really hoping there's no children listening to this. So if there are, please turn this off. And there was a comment about, and it was actually my boyfriend's friend who found this because he found it hilarious, some of the comments that were coming through. And like some of them was about my sex life. And I was like, excuse me, how you have gone for it here, guys. And like so many people saying, I bet she pegs her boyfriend. I'm sorry. Like, what the hell? How have you gone from? I'm just, I'm screaming at a bar, I'm shouting at a bar. It's a squat video. It's from Arnold's, it's, I'm really happy with the squat, all the rest of it. There's a celebration at the end. And from that, you've got that I pegged my boyfriend. Okay, that's new. That's special right there. But there was multiple of them. I was just like, oh my God, what? So yeah, that was the funniest thing ever. Like there were so many comments. I was howling for. I still get them through now daily. I don't know how celebrities deal with this. I've had to turn my notifications off. I was in after this post went out a couple of days later. I was in a meeting with a student and my phone was on the side. This is when I had to turn off my notifications. And someone wrote, "You are disgusting. Are you even a woman?" And it popped up and my student was next to me and I was like, I have to apologise. I'm just going to have to remove this and take off my notifications. I was like, wow, like, I'm so sorry that you feel so offended by that you feel the need to do that. It's just so funny.
What shocks me is I did not expect that. I genuinely did not.
You didn't.
Sat here thinking civilized conversation, and then Bobbie just comes out with that bomb. It's
people have said I look like a man. People have said that I look like I'm on steroids. Cocaine was even thrown in there, people saying that. And it was just that. I was like, wow, that's a different level of powerlifting community we've led to here. I know.
It's blown my mind.
It is mind-blowing. It really is.
How do you deal with those sorts of comments? Because social media, it's fantastic, but it can be a dark place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with that sort of comment?
What's very fortunate is I really don't care what people say. I really, really do not care. And I find it hilarious and really interesting as well. Like I go into sports site mode of like, I wonder what's drawn them that conclusion.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those where like I genuinely don't care. Like I know that I'm not everybody's cup of tea and that's okay. Like I really don't care. I at first was commenting back to a few of them after the Arnolds, like I was explaining, like, someone put a genuine question of, why are you getting so hyped? Why are you screaming? And I put a bit of an explanation. There was one comment that was about, I really didn't like this. Do all powerlifters have mental health issues? And I was like, right, that's inappropriate. You can slate me, call me names, or you're like, I don't care, but you're not saying that about the powerlifting community. That's not okay.
Yeah.
And then like my auntie got involved in that comment because I got called thick, that I had no brain cells, I was dumb, and I was like, all right, simmer down. Yeah. And then I stopped then. I was like, my auntie got involved and then insulted my auntie. I was like, mate, you need to back off now because that's my family, not me. Express it to me, not my family. And then I was done then. I was like, I'm done with commenting back because it just got out of hand. It's got something like 3 million plays or something. And I was like, I'm done. Don't want anything to do with this post other than, I'm just happy with the squat.
It was a good squat. I enjoyed my time at Arnold's and that's it. Happy days.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm done.
Social media in general, what are your views? And you've been around the sport and social media for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of new people coming into the sport, a lot of new people who have got quite significant followings. And what advice would you give anybody in that situation and how to deal with social media?
That's a really, really good question. And it's definitely something that I think should be talked about more, and potentially even like, education on this as well, potentially, because it really can be. You can see how someone really can have issues with the experience that they get from social media. I think if you notice potentially, that you are being affected by some of the comments, I think question yourself, like, what, why? Why is it bothering you that this person who doesn't know you is affecting you? There's no right or wrong answer to that at all, but knowing sort of like why, like in my thoughts, if it was my boyfriend that was saying, you're an absolute psycho, you're disgusting, that's different. But the fact that it was somebody else, I was like, I really don't care what you think. Like, I really don't give two hoots. So I think it's that sort of why are you letting that in? And again, it's okay if it is, it's okay if it isn't, but understanding yourself. And yeah, like, I guess, why are you using social media in the first place? And remembering that everyone uses social media. Everyone uses social media for different reasons. Or everyone that uses social media uses it for different reasons. Not everyone uses social media. And use it the way that you would want to. And I think just remember it's a snippet of somebody's life. I think that's a key thing.
It's key.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I've seen is people have a perception of how they should act on social media within powerlifting and within sport.
Mm-hmm.
And my views on this is just be yourself.
Oh, 100%.
If people don't like it, does it matter?
Exactly. No, I totally agree. And that's one thing I definitely have advocated right from the start. I was very late to social media in terms of age-wise because I didn't have it in school. I didn't want anything to do with it. I just saw that it caused so many catty girl fights. I was like, I can't be bothered with that. And then, so I think I was 19. No, actually, I think I was 21 before I went on social media. Something around that, I think. And I was like, I'm just myself. I'm not putting a highlight reel on. I'm not putting purposeful things on that's not me. Everything that I put on, it's a company that I work with that I genuinely want to work with. It's what actually I do in a day, if you will, or everything's just authentic. If I failed a lift, I'm going to tell you. If I was successful in a lift, I'm going to tell you. That type of thing from the powerlifting side of things. However, still, even though I think that's what I'm doing, I remember someone messaging me saying, oh, you just seem to have it all together all the time. And I'm like, that is not correct. How am I portraying myself for that to come across? Because, that's certainly not the case. So, I'm really trying to make sure I put a balance on things, if you will, and making sure that, I don't shy away from saying the difficult times, which I didn't think I was doing anyway, but I was like, maybe I should put a bit more of both. Obviously, the problem is not the problem, but the thing is, when you're not feeling that great about yourself, you don't really want to then go on social media because you're trying to deal with things yourself. So, so I'm like, how am I going to do that? And I think I did this, was it last week or the week before? And I was like, no, I'm going to show people that I do not want to be in the gym today. Like, it's 7:00 of an evening. I've been working all day. I've got an SBD session that's going to take me 3.5 hours or whatever. And do I want to be in the gym? Absolutely not. What did I do to get into it? I did some dancing. Like, that was just like, this is what's happening. This is how I'm feeling. And I'd like to think I do that often. But that sort of comment, I was like, no, I want to make sure people know that I don't have it together all of the time. I'm not a robot. And I don't think anyone should have everything together all of the time.
People can see through it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
People can see through it. It's crazy it's crazy to think that people don't have the difficulties.
Yeah. Definitely. It is an absolute minefield, and I'm certainly not an expert in it at all. But you see it all, don't you? You see all sorts of different things. Sometimes damaging messages, sometimes great content. I think it's great for powerlifting. You get to see what people are doing, lifting wise, sharing the love for the sport, and that's great. But it certainly can be used in a negative way as well.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Do you have any parting messages that you want to put out there? Is there anything else that you feel that we've not sort of covered that you'd like to put out there for the listeners?
This is a good question. I think, ending on what was just talked about there, be yourself. Like, I think that's a really important message. Know yourself and be yourself. Be your authentic self all of the time. No one else can be you except you. Yeah, and that is in every aspect of your life.
It's a great message. And I'm gonna call it there, Bobbie. It's been an absolute pleasure to spend this time chatting to you, getting to know you as a person, not just you as a lifter. So there we have it, guys. If you've enjoyed today's episode, give Bobbie a follow, a like, comment, be nice. But like I say, give the YouTube episode a good thumbs up and drop us a subscription. And that's it. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.